Hey everyone, it's Josh, your resident nerd with microphone, and welcome to In-Betweens, a series that, like an animation, will serve as the bridge between the large-scale keyframe retrospectives since they take a long time to make. At least so long as I've got a full-time job, continue to churn them out on my own, and YouTube's copyright system is being abused at the moment. So, I thought that until I'm in a situation where I can hire an editor and put more time into getting those keyframe episodes out quicker, I could provide you guys with some shorter videos to fill those gaps, starting with this series here. The goal of In-Betweens will be to cover all of the theatrical animated features in chronological order, one video at a time, until we catch up to the beginning of the Oscar era in 2001, giving my thoughts on each film in a less structured manner than the keyframe videos, and hopefully upload more often as a result. I'll provide my yearly and per decade rankings along the way, and when it's all said and done, I'll do a full-on top 100 video for the whole 20th century as a sort of series finale. But that's enough of that. Let's get things underway, starting with... The Adventures of Prince Achmed, the oldest surviving animated feature film and fifth one ever made. And one way to understand what makes this film so significant is to look at what came before. Watching the earliest animated shorts, trends echoing the modern day start to emerge. Cyclical exercises and movements similar to animated GIFs on the internet. Live action films filled with animated effects, much like modern VFX blockbusters. Interactive parlor tricks involving a live performer and a screen nearly 100 years before Turtle Talk and the Laugh Floor ever saw the light of day. And of course, fully fledged animated shorts, consisting of figurine-based stop motion, hand-drawn 2D, and most prominently for the era, cutout animation. While nowadays the technique is mainly limited to off-the-cuff comedies like Monty Python or South Park, cutout animation formed the backbone of many early animated works, including the very first 4 animated features. First, there was legendary voice actor and Bozo the Clown performer Pinto Colvig's creation in 1916, a film that was not only the first ever animated feature, but also the first original animated feature. The second and third films, 1917's The Apostle and 1918's Without a Trace, came courtesy of Argentine cartoonist Quirino Cristiani, sardonic political satires that took aim squarely at then-president of Argentina Hipólito Yrigoyen, who, in line with Cristiani's portrayals of him, would order Without a Trace to be confiscated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the fourth and final film of this first wave was The Life and Miracles of Jiggs, a crowd-pleasing comedy based on the popular American comic strip Bringing Up Father, courtesy of Chilean directors Carlos Espejo and Carlos Borzkowski. Unfortunately, one way or another, these films would all be lost to time, leading us back to our oldest survivor, 1926's The Adventures of Prince Achmed. Somewhere in Arabia, a wicked sorcerer conjures up a mechanical flying horse and presents it to the Caliph. The Caliph is spellbound by the flying steed and immediately offers an enormous sum of gold to buy the contraption, but the sorcerer refuses. The Caliph, in turn, offers the sorcerer any treasure in the kingdom as payment for the horse, which the sorcerer takes as an opportunity to claim the princess's hand in marriage. The princess's brother, Prince Achmed, objects to this and confronts the sorcerer over his motives, but is gradually persuaded into trying the flying horse by the sneaky mage. Achmed ascends into the air, only to realize that the horse has been rigged to never stop rising, causing him to fly off into a faraway land as the sorcerer runs off with his sister. Now, Prince Achmed's got to make his way back to his homeland through the aid of some new friends and stop the evil sorcerer from fracturing the kingdom. Now sure, it's a really bare-bones plot and the characters are little more than archetypal pawns in the narrative. But what makes this film stand out in retrospect isn't how it's presented. The Adventures of Prince Achmed was directed by Lotte Reiniger, a German master of silhouette animation, and the full breadth of her skills are on display here. Immediately after the film's opening curtain call, you're struck with how intricate and varied the character designs are. Reiniger makes great use of different contours, ornate clothing, and prominent physical variations to help make each character distinct from one another. And it's funny to me because one of the key things that we use to indicate an interesting and singular character design is to assess them by their silhouette. And yet when it comes to silhouette animation, it's often very difficult to tell who's who at times in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, but Reiniger pulls it off. Another factor that keeps the characters distinct is in the character animation. Unlike in other forms of animation where any action or expression can be drawn, sculpted, or manipulated inside the computer, silhouette animation requires a far more economical approach due to its flat dimensions and limited rig-based motion. Here, Reinecker shows a deft balance of broad theatrical gestures like when the sorcerer is conjuring up the magic elephant, alongside more subtle actions during close-ups of characters' faces as they scheme, ponder, and fall madly in love. These movements are further emphasized by the way they're staged, as Reinecker makes liberal use of negative space to frame characters in elegant shapes and form the interiors of locations like cramped prisons and gilded castles. On top of this, the effects animation also excels, with its zippy streaks of lightning, humans morphing into animals, papercraft fires, and varying forms of magic. Just some simple, well-executed, old-fashioned effects, and that's kinda how I feel about the whole film in general. Though silhouette animation may have all but faded into obscurity nowadays outside of a few outliers, the animation of Prince Achmed holds up quite well given its age and technique. Even if the plot and characters are doing the absolute bare minimum, I mean, there's nobody who's going to say Prince Achmed is one of their favorite protagonists in an animated film, and the film falls more into the category of films I respect rather than films that I love. The visual style and historical significance help to make it an enjoyable watch nonetheless. Honestly, as someone who made their fair share of crappy animations in Pivot, I wish I saw this film during that stage of my life. Maybe it could have been a great source of inspiration and a real eye-opener in terms of animation history. Growing up in the States, any time the topic of first animated movie came up, I'd just be given an obligatory spiel about Snow White, Disney, and all that comes with that production. And sure, Snow White was a quantum leap forward for the medium, whose impact is immense. But facts are facts, and it wasn't the first one. I wasn't aware of Achmed's existence, nor would I have known where to access it. But things are very different these days because of how far the internet has come. If you want to find out what the earliest animated films are, you can just Google it. If you want to start your own pilgrimage into animated filmmaking and watch Prince Achmed yourself, you have literally dozens of options at your disposal, and many of which are free. You can just open up YouTube on a variety of devices and watch the oldest surviving animated feature anywhere in the world at any time. So, if you'd like to, then do it. Go experience history for yourself and see what you take away from it. Moving on to my rankings, there's not much to report. The Adventures of Prince Achmed was the only animated film to be released in 1926, so it gets that year's crown by default. And seeing as it's our first film in the series, it automatically gets vaulted to the top of our decade's power rankings for the time being. Also, just to clarify, seeing as there were so few animated films released between 1926 to 1949, I decided to consolidate those 3 decades into a single bracket for the sake of simplicity. Every decade from the 1950s onwards will be self-contained since the volume of films increases exponentially over time, but that's a story for another day, because we've reached the end of our very first episode. We've gone over feature animation's genesis with its bevy of innovations and complications, and now look towards what the young medium's future held for the pioneers of yesteryear. So, until then, thanks for watching.